Okay, let's unpack this. When we think about Native American societies before European contact, it's easy to just picture one thing, right? One single culture.
Yeah, that's a common trap.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't like that. What we're really looking at is this vibrant tapestry, just incredible diversity. So many different peoples, each with their own way of life.
A tapestry, I like that.
It's remarkable, really, how every landscape, deserts, fertile river valleys, rich coastlines, each one prompted totally different responses. That led to dozens of unique societies, not just one monolithic group.
Right.
And the key takeaway here, I think, is that these societies were incredibly diverse, incredibly complex. And the core reason for that diversity, it was their unique interaction with their specific environment.
That really brings it home. So our deep dive today, we're going to explore exactly that, how and why these different native populations across North America developed such distinct societies, how
Yeah.
they interacted with their surroundings, and we'll unpack some, well, frankly, surprising facts about their economies, settlements, social structures, some amazing innovations too.
Absolutely.
So our mission really is to give you a shortcut, a way to grasp the complexity and the adaptability of these early American civilizations. Hopefully you'll get those aha moments,
Yeah.
when you really appreciate their ingenuity.
Yeah, you'll see how some groups relied heavily on maize cultivation, intensive farming. Others developed these highly mobile lifestyles.
Always on the move?
Exactly. And then others had mixed economies, farming and hunting and gathering, or they lived in these resource-rich coastal areas. So many different strategies.
That's a great framework. Okay, so let's start with one of those big ones, maize. You mentioned its impact. Can you walk us through how the spread of maize, corn coming up from present-day Mexico northward, how that really reshaped societies, especially in the American Southwest?
Oh, absolutely. Maize cultivation was, well, it was a game changer, a total game changer. It supported huge economic development. It led directly to permanent settlements, people staying in one place.
Because they could grow food reliably.
Precisely. And that allowed for advanced irrigation systems, really sophisticated ones, and it fueled social diversification. More complex societies could emerge. And if we look south, just for context, maize was absolutely fundamental for those massive civilizations in Central and South America. They kind of set the stage.
Right, the Aztecs, the Maya, the Incas, we're talking about huge, complex societies there.
Exactly. The Aztecs or the Mexica, they built Tenochtitlan, an
Yeah.
incredible capital city, maybe 300,000 people.
Wow. That's enormous for the
It
time.
really was. They had written language, complex irrigation, this whole cult of fertility that involved human sacrifice, which is obviously controversial,
Yeah.
but part of their complex system.
An immense city, built on a lake, sustained by advanced engineering. It's just staggering.
It is. And then you have the Mayas down on the Yucatan Peninsula. Also large cities, complex irrigation again, water storage systems, these grand stone temples and palaces.
For rulers they saw as God descended.
Right. Building all that in a jungle environment, that tells you a lot about their resource management and how they organize their society.
And the Incas, up in the Andes.
Another vast empire. Modern-day Peru, mainly, ruling maybe 16 million people across 350,000 square miles. Their success, cultivating fertile mountain valleys, growing crops like potatoes, using these elaborate irrigation systems on steep slopes.
Engineering agriculture across mountains.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It really is. And all three, the common thread was cultivating maize or other high-yield crops. That was the bedrock. It allowed for that economic development, that societal complexity. And that pattern, that agricultural foundation, spread north.
It's amazing how different they were, though, based on where they lived. Really underscores your point about the environment. Okay, so let's bring that north to the American Southwest. Groups like the Hohok, they were in modern-day southern Arizona, right? How did they adapt maize cultivation?
Right? The whole hokum. They took that agricultural mastery into really arid lands. They practiced extensive maize farming and supported it with, honestly, one of the most sophisticated irrigation systems before Columbus. We're talking canals diverting river water over miles to water desert farms.
In the desert. That's serious engineering.
It absolutely is. And because they had that stable food source, they became sedentary. They built complex villages, ceremonial platforms. They even had trade networks reaching down into Mesoamerica. And we know them for their distinctive pottery, their turquoise jewelry. A really rich culture thriving in a tough environment.
And what about the Pueblo peoples, also in the Southwest, New Mexico and Arizona?
Yes, the Pueblo. Similar story in terms of adaptation, but distinct.
Right.
Also, sedentary farmers, maize, beans, squash, but they're famous for their homes. These distinctive adobe and masonry structures, built both out in the open and, remarkably, right into cliffside.
The cliff dwellings, yeah.
Exactly. And those weren't just houses. They reflected a highly organized society, administrative offices, religious centers, kivas, craft shops, all integrated,
Yeah.
building multi-story towns into the landscape. It wasn't just practical. It showed deep community organization and architectural skill.
Okay, so maize clearly fueled incredible developments in the right places. But what about regions where, intensive farming like that just wasn't feasible? How did people adapt there? What other innovations did they come up with?
That's a really crucial question because not everywhere could support maize like the Southwest or Mesoamerica. So if we connect this back to the bigger picture, think about the Great Basin, really arid, or the vast western Great Plains. The environment there basically demanded a completely different survival strategy. Mobility, constant movement. These were largely nomadic or semi-nomadic groups, hunter-gatherers, and they needed huge amounts of land because resources, water, food, they were just really scarce and spread out.
So scarcity forced them to move. Survival meant following the resources.
Exactly. Take the Apache, for example. They lived across the Southwest, but also parts of the Great Plains and Great Basin. They were semi-nomadic, moved seasonally, hunting game like buffalo, gathering wild plants. That movement was essential in their arid environment.
And their social structure reflected that.
Yes, generally organized into kinship-based bands.
Yeah.
Relatively egalitarian structures. It's a very adaptable system for moving across harsh, unpredictable landscapes.
Okay, and the Shoshone. They were more in the Great Basin itself.
Right, places like Nevada, Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, resource-scarce areas, they were truly nomadic hunter-gatherers, relied on wild plants, small game, fish, and this required just incredibly extensive knowledge of the land. Where to find water, what plants were edible when, animal migrations.
You'd have to be an expert naturalist just to survive.
Absolutely. They lived in small, mobile bands, again based on kinship, with pretty egalitarian leadership. Their ecological knowledge was astounding.
And the Ute. Similar pattern.
Very similar. Also in the Great Basin and western Great Plains, Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, semi-nomadic, following game, gathering plants seasonally, small, kinship-based egalitarian bands. For all these groups, mobility wasn't just a lifestyle. It was the core adaptation. Shaped everything else.
Okay, so we have intensive farmers in some areas, highly mobile hunter-gatherers in others, but you mentioned a third category. What about places that were maybe somewhere in between? More forgiving environments, but maybe not suited for massive maize fields.
Exactly. Not everyone was constantly on the move. This brings up that important question. How did societies flourish where the environment was more forgiving? Think about the fertile soil in the Mississippi River Valley or along the Atlantic seaboard. These areas allowed for a blend.
A blend of farming and...
Farming and foraging, agriculture alongside, hunting, fishing, gathering. And this combination allowed for permanent settlements. They had enough stable resources that they didn't have to be nomadic all the time. And that stability paved the way for different kinds of cultural development.
Okay, give us an example.
Well, a really fascinating one is the Hopewell culture, Ohio River Valley, part of that broader Mississippian culture. They're famous for building those incredible large earthen mounds. Huge earthworks.
Right, for ceremonies and burials.
Exactly. And what's amazing is the evidence of their trade networks. We find materials in those mounds from all over North America. Obsidian from the Rockies, shells from the Gulf Coast.
Wow, extensive network.
Really extensive. And they practiced that mixed economy, agriculture, and foraging. They lived in semi-sedentary villages, usually near rivers, which helped with farming and trade. And the scale and precision of those mounds, some aligned with the sun or moon, it speaks to a really organized society, complex beliefs, a sophisticated worldview.
Okay, what about closer to the Atlantic?
Good example there. The Delaware, or the Lemake, mid-Atlantic region. They farmed corn, beans, squash, the classics, but also did a lot of hunting and fishing. They lived in permanent villages, wigwams or longhouses, often near rivers, again, for resources.
And socially?
They were organized into matrilineal clans tracing lineage through the mother's side, and they made decisions through consensus-based councils. So, socially complex, but still fairly egalitarian, balancing farming with abundant natural resources.
And down in what's now North Carolina, the Secatan?
Right, the Secatan. They also cultivated corn, beans, squash, even sunflowers. that supported permanent village life.
Hmm.
Their towns seemed quite organized based on early European drawings, central plazas, distinct areas, shows a level of social and political structure.
And they're notable because they encountered the early English settlers, the Roanoke colony.
Exactly, one of the first points of extended contact. Their settled, organized communities, supported by diverse agriculture, show another effective way to use the environment.
And we can't talk about the Northeast without mentioning the Iroquois, the Haudenosaunee.
Definitely not. A powerhouse in the northeastern woodlands, primarily New York State. They formed the famous Iroquois Confederacy, or League, practiced slash-and-burn agriculture, focusing on the Three Sisters, corn, beans, and squash grown together.
Who lived in longhouses, right?
Yes, permanent villages with large communal longhouses. And crucially, they also had matrilineal clan systems. Lineage traced through the mother, which gave women significant social and political influence.
And their confederacy, the Great Law of Peace. That's an incredibly sophisticated political achievement.
Absolutely. Uniting 5, later 6, distinct nations under a common constitution, far beyond simple alliances, a testament to their political innovation.
Okay, so we've covered farming adaptations, mobile adaptations, mixed economies. What about coastal areas, particularly, say, the Pacific Northwest? That seems like another unique environment.
It really is, and it leads to another incredible story of adaptation. What's fascinating there is how the sheer abundance of certain resources allowed groups to develop complex, settled communities, often without relying heavily on agriculture.
Abundance of what? Fish.
Fish, absolutely, especially salmon runs in the Pacific Northwest,
Mm.
but also marine mammals, timber from the dense forest, berries, roots.
Mm-hmm.
The environment was incredibly rich in specific ways.
Okay, so how did that play out? Let's take the Chumash down in Southern California.
Like the Chumash lived along the coast and on the Channel Islands. They built permanent villages, sometimes quite large ones, and their economy was heavily marine-based. Fishing sardines, shellfish harvesting kelp, and they were amazing boat builders. They made these plank canoes called tommels.
Plank canoes, not dugout.
No, sewn together planks, sealed with asphaltum, really sophisticated. These tommels allowed them to travel long distances on the ocean for fishing, whaling, and especially trade between the islands and the mainland.
Wow, that requires serious skill.
It does. And they had complex social structures, chiefdoms, specialized craftspeople, even astronomical knowledge reflected in their rock art. The tommel itself shows incredible maritime mastery.
Okay, moving way north now. The Aleutian Islands, off Alaska. That's a harsh environment.
Incredibly harsh.
Mm.
Cold, windy, stormy.
Mm.
The Aleutes developed truly unique adaptations there. They live in semi-subterranean homes called barabras, dug partially into the ground, covered with sod and driftwood for insulation. Genius architecture for the climate.
Smart. And survival.
Almost entirely marine-based hunting. Seals, sea lions, sea otters, even whales. They were masters of the kayak, using harpoons and specialized gear, small, kin-based communities, with spiritual beliefs deeply tied to the sea and the animals they hunted, thriving in a place most would find impossible.
Amazing. And back down a bit along the Columbia River, Oregon and Washington area. The Chinook.
Ah, the Chinook. Another fascinating case shaped by the river. They lived in permanent villages along the Columbia, often in large plank houses made from cedar. Their lifeline was the river, specifically the massive salmon runs. That was the core of their economy, supplemented by trade.
And socially, they were different too.
Yes, unusually so for many native societies. They had a clearly stratified society. Class divisions. There were nobles, commoners, and even enslaved people, often captured in raids or acquired through trade.
That's quite distinct.
It is. Their wealth came from controlling the river, the salmon fisheries, and the trade routes that passed through their territory. This led to that social hierarchy. They're also known for their impressive dugout canoes and totem poles.
And finally, maybe the Tlingit. Even further north, coastal Alaska and British Columbia.
Right, the Tlingit. Inhabiting those coastal temperate rainforests, they had a mixed economy, but again, heavily reliant on the sea and forest. Fishing, especially salmon, was huge. Also whaling, hunting elk, gathering berries and roots. They lived in permanent winter villages with impressive wooden longhouses, often decorated with clan crests. But they also moved seasonally to different camps for resource gathering.
And known for totem poles and...
Elaborate clan systems, definitely totem poles, and the potlatch ceremonies.
Ah, the potlatch. Can you explain that briefly?
Sure. It was a complex ceremony, a big feast hosted by high-ranking individuals or clans. It involved displaying wealth, giving away vast amounts of property, sometimes even destroying it. It wasn't about hoarding wealth. It was about validating status, reinforcing social hierarchies, fulfilling obligations, and redistributing goods.
So a really sophisticated social and economic mechanism.
Incredibly sophisticated,
Right.
reflecting a very rich and nuanced cultural system built around the abundance of their coastal environment.
Wow. Okay. So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you listening right now?
Well, hopefully what you're seeing is that the simple idea of Native Americans just doesn't cut it. It's far too simple.
Mm-hmm.
What we've really explored today is this incredible range, this amazing diversity of societies across North America long before Europeans arrived.
And each unique way of life was just fundamentally shaped by the specific environment they lived in.
Yeah, whether it was mastering maize in arid lands, adopting a nomadic life on the plains, blending farming and foraging near rivers, or harnessing the bounty of the coasts. So instead of that single image, you can now picture, hopefully, dozens of highly sophisticated cultures. Interconnected, yes, but also incredibly adaptive in their own unique ways.
These weren't just people surviving, they were engineers, innovators, building complex societies perfectly tailored to their homelands.
Demonstrating such a deep understanding of their ecosystems.
Absolutely. So, maybe a final thought to leave you with. Just consider the profound ingenuity and resilience it took for all these diverse societies to not just survive, but to truly thrive, to build these complex cultures custom-fitted to every corner of a continent for centuries before major external influences arrived.
What can we learn today, maybe, about human adaptability, about innovation, about living in harmony with the land from their centuries of experience?
Something to think about.